Hello and welcome to Let's Get This Skinny. Today I am talking with past client, current friend, Katy, self-proclaimed regular person. We were just talking about this. Katy is so much more than a regular person. She went through my 10-10 program months ago and was just such a treat to watch transform, and definitely had her ups and downs, as everyone does in their process. And so I'm really looking forward to talking to you, Katy, today about all the good times and the bad times and everything in between in your 10-10 process, because I know that your experience will be really relatable for those who are interested in healing their relationship to food, whether it be due to excess weight that they want to release or a gazillion other reasons that are connected to when eating is out of order, life is out of order. So let's start with the fun stuff. How would you describe who you are or who you were before joining 1010?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I I was confused as fuck coming into 1010. That's how I would best describe myself. God bless that version of me. Like, she was trying so hard and doing her best. But there was so much information on social media, in books, from doctors, and I was doing so much. And I consider myself to be like kind of a smart person, but I felt like I was getting duped. I want to say duped, but I really don't think people on the internet are intentionally trying to dupe you. It's just there's so much stuff, and I was falling for some of it. And I was doing everything that I thought I should be doing. So I had a personal trainer that I was seeing, and I was doing the weightlifting because, like, God forbid you do HIIT. You're not supposed to do that because it'll make you more hungry and like spike the stuff. And then I had this like split energy with food freedom talk in my head, but also like overindulging in all of the sour gummy worms because I like loved sour gummy worms. But then I would go to the grocery store and micromanage the very specific like organic turkey that I was allowed to eat, and I had to have like the beans on it too for like all the protein. And then I couldn't have, God forbid, the crispy taco shells because all the preservatives that were, I don't know, like I was making stuff up, but I so micromanaged all of this. But then I would go and like eat all these sour gummy worms. It made no sense. And I had a doctor tell me that I had PCOS and that I should work on like blood glucose levels. But like, raise your hand if you know what that means, because I didn't. I just, somebody said, like, well, then you should have more protein at breakfast. And I did the thing that we all do where we have 16 eggs for breakfast. And one of the first things I did when I started 1010, because you were like, have food that feels good to you. Kiki, I don't think I ate an egg during 1010. I was so sick of them.
Not the most exciting thing. Like, unless you're gonna like do an egg and it's super bougie at a brunch and it's with like other things, I'm like, eggs are just not hitting it for me.
They weren't. I was abusing the eggs because I thought that I needed to be. And before I did 1010, I was at this point where I'm so embarrassed to say this. I was considering the Candida cleanse, like doing one of
All
those,
been there.
right? Like,
We all had that moment. Yeah.
it's so absurd. It's so absurd. I could sit here now and be like, "Oh my God, what was I thinking?" Because you have to like identify the right gut bacteria and make sure that you're going to get rid of the right one. And if you do it wrong, then that can make things worse. And like when you do it, you have to do it like under the full moon while hopping on one foot with like a drink that's been blessed by a witch. I don't know. Like, it's
Yeah.
just too much stuff. And I was so inundated with all of this information. And I knew in my body that this was not why we're on this planet. We're not on this planet to like micromanage a candida cleanse.
Yeah.
And, it reminds me of Legally Blonde, that part in the movie where they're like, happy people just don't kill their husbands. They just don't. Like, we're not here to manage the candida cleanse. We're just not.
Right? Happy people do not go on candida cleanses.
Don't. They just don't. So that's where I was before 1010. And then like immediately before, when I reached out to you, I said, my partner and I are ring shopping. We're talking about a proposal. I know that we're going to do this soon and that I was going to enter into this like beautiful new stage in my life. And I knew for me it was time to look at this. I knew that I was ready. I knew that I was making excuses in places where I didn't want to be making excuses anymore. And that like now is the time for me.
Oh, I love that because you are the template of my favorite and best clients, and hopefully only clients moving forward. Because as you addressed towards the end, you were no longer wanting to feed into all of the bullshit, and you were also ready to make a change and do it for the right reasons, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't, oh well, I realized I had a wedding coming up and I really needed to fit into this mess, right?
No.
It was more so, you know what? I realized that I'm stepping into this like next version of me and I can make this next chapter something that I enjoy
Mhm.
or something that I continue to endure, right? And so it's
Right.
never about, specifically the weight as much as it is like how you feel, right?
Yeah, I
And
wanted to feel good. I wanted to enjoy those moments. I wanted to like be able to go out to eat and like not hate my life afterwards or feel so guilty. So
yeah,
yes, absolutely.
yeah. And it's interesting because, like, on that note, I've been talking with my business coach who is super brilliant. And I was telling her, I was like, I don't know if I want to let go of this skinny bitch thing because sometimes I feel like I get women that are just like so focused on the weight part. And she was like, well, you do say skinny bitch, right? And I was like, well, you told me to, but there's a whole other podcast for a whole other day. But she brought up a really good point where it's like I think skinny bitch is like one of the things on their
Mhm.
list of 100. And I think that that's what it was for you. It was like, well, yeah, I want to let go of my excess, and also I have this list here that I'd like to go through as well, right? And so paint us a picture. What has changed for you, not just weight wise, but obviously
Mhm.
get into that too because that helps with my sales. So say it all.
Yes.
But also energetically, spiritually, emotionally, like talk about that shift.
Yeah. What hasn't changed is my answer to that. Physically is, obviously the most easy to talk about. None of my clothes fit me anymore, Kiki. It's terrible. Um, it's a real hard problem to have. I bought pants at the end of 1010 and they don't fit me anymore either. So like I know it's great. Like I came to you with a lot of excess, like more than 10 pounds that I wanted to lose. And I'm like at the halfway point for me. So not only did I lose the 10 pounds during 1010, I've kept losing weight and I feel great. I look in the mirror and I like what I see. I still, can tell that there's still excess that I want to lose, but it's there. It's happening. It's happening on its time. I don't stress about it. It's like it's beautiful. It's great. Um Emotionally is so interesting. I'm not going to lie. I'm so much more emotional now than I was before. Because here's the thing, I was eating to avoid emotions.
Mhm.
And now that I don't eat, or now that I don't avoid the emotions with food, they all come up and they, want to be felt.
Yeah.
And I, I cry more, but like not in a bad way. Like it's really more of a release of energy that I have. And like it's not like anything happened or anything bad happened. It's just like this is what life is sometimes. And sometimes we cry and like it's okay. Nothing's gonna happen. Nothing, it doesn't mean anything bad is happening. It's just like, oh, I cried, now I feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Especially as women, right? And I
I
think
know.
that's also why I think because sometimes people will say like, oh, well, why don't you teach this to men? And I'm like, I guess I could, but also I feel like women, we really need more support in these days in tapping into our feminine energy, and that is the feeling, right? And it's like if someone came to you and they were like, okay, you can either have all of these emotions or you can shove them all down with food and carry excess weight. I think most women would be like, fine, I'll take the emotions, right? But then in
Yeah.
the moment, they're like, oh my God, no, I'm having an emotion, right? And like not to shame them, but it's like really reminding yourself and some of the reframes that I use, like I want to feel the range of my emotions, right?
Yes.
So I know that you're sort of saying it like, sorry, I'm going to reveal, like, there's a lot of emotions. But it's like, I do think that's a beautiful thing because they were in you anyways. Now they're bubbling up and, blossoming and then going on their merry way. Whereas just getting stuck inside, right?
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is when you suppress the negative emotions, right? You're also suppressing the happy ones. They don't have
Mm-hmm.
as much space. So as
Yeah.
soon as you like release some of the ones that are like more uncomfortable, the sadness and the anger, because when I remember saying in like the group discussion, I was like, I have so much anger, Kiki. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. And I don't know why I'm mad, but I'm so mad. And
Mm-hmm.
I to me personally, I think that anger is a mask for sadness. So it was really that I was sad and that I was showing it through anger. But as soon as I like tapped into that and kind of started addressing it and gave it some space and I employed journaling, um, it really like I felt the other end of the spectrum of my emotional range come to life too. Like I could be happier, I could feel sexier, I could feel joy more easily. Like the ups were also like way more dynamic.
Oh, I love that. And that reminds me of a training I did. It was called emotional brain training. And it talks about how you actually need anger in order to feel sadness. Or essentially, like once you get through anger, usually then you can feel the sadness, right? And so, but so often we skip that, especially again as women, right? Not to be so cliche, but it's like we don't really like, we don't want to feel angry. And it's usually, and I know speaking from experience, and maybe you're the same, it's usually the women that are like, oh no, I'm not angry at all. Like, because I remember once some therapist or whatever was like, there's a lot of anger in you. And I was like, what? I'm never
No.
angry. And it's like, of course, if you're never angry, there's so much anger in you. Like, it has never been like released.
Oh my god. I know. Journaling has really been like a game changer for me. I sometimes I journal as like my angry alter ego. And like
Yes.
I write down all the things I would never say out loud and then I burn it.
Oh
And
my
it's
God, I
the
love that.
best.
Oh, amazing. I mean, that's such a healthier way to do it. And I mean,
I
sometimes
know.
maybe, or you can make angry TikToks like I do. Just saying. And I also want to touch on if you feel comfortable talking about it. I believe that you mentioned about like PCOS,
Yeah.
and that is something that so many women come to me with, and they sort of see it as like, okay, like I'll try your program, but then I also have PCOS, so like I kind of need to almost deal with them separately. I'd be curious to know kind of how you navigated all of that with like the PCOS stuff and sort of what you would say to someone who is also, facing a diagnosis or thinks that PCOS is so complicated. Even if you talk about two doctors, they're like,
I know.
I remember being told like, no, you don't have it, but you have like a variant of it. And then they'll be like, no, you have it. And they'll be like, no, you technically have all the symptoms, but you don't have it. Or like you have it, but you don't have it. I'm like, guys, can you redefine the definition so that because no one like has it, but then they're symptomatic, but then if they're not, but then they might have it. I'm like, what?
I know. Yes. And like I'm not a doctor, so like grain of salt here. But what is it? Does anyone know? I mean, there's no test as far as I know. Like while they can go like a searching for a cyst, I think
Yeah.
all women have cysts, like by the nature of having a period, like you get a cyst and that goes away during your cycle. So even if you go looking for them, like they're there. So their being there is not an indication of having PCOS. So anyway, like I had the same thing where one doctor was like, it's just like a catch-all for anyone who has like a funky period. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that can't be right. Like, who decided that?
Yeah.
So I, the way I talk about it internally, like with myself, is like a doctor told me I had this. I do
Mhm.
not own that I do because who's to say?
Yeah.
I was carrying, pounds of excess. I had funky acne in like weird places, and my period has been irregular forever. So, like with those symptoms, they can look at me and say, like, "You probably have it," and I was like, "All right, great." Um, part of why I chose to work with you was because you had this one video that I stumbled upon pretty early on in my like discovery of you, where you're like, um, "You're using PCOS as an excuse," and I was like, "Me?"
How
And
dare you?
And I was like, who is this person who's like in my head? Because you were like, you're using it as an excuse. I'm like, I am. And you're like, do you feel validated that your doctor said you have it? I was like, I do. And like, but you would never go on the pill, right? And I was like, no, I wouldn't, because that's going to mess up your hormones. It's like, you're looking at all the naturopaths. I'm like, I am. And you're like, you're going to give them all your money. I was like, no, I'm not. It was just like one after another. And then you're like, I felt like you were looking me dead in the eye, being like, stop using it as an excuse. You are the problem. You are Taylor Swift. You're the problem. I'm like, I am the problem. And it was so true. I felt it in my bones. I was like, all of these things are accurate. Like, I do say like, well, I have excess because of PCOS. Like, but I couldn't point to anything that said that I did. And I myself didn't feel like that was an appropriate diagnosis for me.
Yeah.
So for anyone who has been told that they have PCOS and they're considering a program like this, I don't know. To me, it felt like such the right thing, because I believe that it can't be this complicated. None of this is that complicated. It's just our bodies. And what every doctor is trying to do is point to a solution like that's outside of the body. When of course it's going to be wrong, because they're not me and they're not you, and they don't know what I need, and I don't know what you need, and I don't know what they need, but I sure know what I need when I think about it real hard. So it's just
Yes. And you know what's funny? I remember when I first lost the weight and I went back, and it was to the same doctor, and she had forgotten that. She just told me that I had like bog standard PCOS, and she goes, "Oh, well, you have lean PCOS." So even if you lose the weight, they're like, "You have lean PCOS." And I was like, "What's that?" It's when you have this certain PCOS that you stay lean. And I was like, "Bitch, I just lost weight." Like don't tell me like, "Oh no, you have a different thing now." Do you know what I mean? So it goes to show. And I'm not a doctor either, but I do appreciate you also being vulnerable with, the acne stuff. Because for a lot
yeah.
of women that I work with, they do notice that whether it's acne or even like the urge to binge or whatever, sometimes I know I hate to say it, but it gets worse before it gets better. That's why I wanted to talk to you. I feel like you are the queen of it gets worse before it gets
It
better.
gets worse before it gets better.
Let me give you the mic.
Oh my gosh, I was like sitting in like my little like cocoon being like, what is happening? Because I was so angry. I had so much emotion coming up and I didn't know what to do with it. I was breaking out all over my neck. I didn't understand, but I just like, it was so weird. I just knew in my body that I was like, this is part of it and it's going to go away and it's going to be fine. But
Yep.
like, you just got to keep swimming, but yeah, it gets worse before it gets better. And I found that like for my own personal, like I said, I had a significant amount of excess weight that I wanted to lose and I'm still in the process of losing. And my journey is more of like a plateau kind of like 5 pounds. And then I got to kind of like recalibrate, and then 5 pounds and then I got to recalibrate. And so even after 10-10, because I did lose like the 10 pounds during 10-10. And then after that, it all happened again because it was just like recalibrating. But what I think is beautiful about your program is that while there was like an amazing amount of support during that, like the 10 weeks, I feel like I kept the tools to keep going afterwards. Like it's still working. Like it's not like you get kicked out after you lose the 10 pounds and it's like, all right, you did it. Good job. Way to go. You're done. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to mention like we leave with a toolbox, and like it's, if you have more that you want to lose, like that's more than doable.
Totally, totally. And thank you for saying that, because yeah, I do notice that a lot of women come into the program and they do have more than 10 pounds to lose. And I think that I wouldn't want to ever shame anyone, because sometimes women will message me privately and be like, like, I have 30 pounds to lose, but like, I'll be the only one. And I'm like, literally, like, you'll be like in the larger percentile.
Right.
And so, it's the same process. And hey, if you are actually, 30 pounds underweight, like God forbid, it would actually also be the same process of, as you say, recalibrating back, because, it is a slower process. And I think sometimes women want to say all this good stuff about me, which is like amazing. But also, we also have to speak the truth, right? It's like, and when they do speak the truth, it's not like, wow, I just dropped all the weight. Like, and it was so effortless. One day I just woke up and I was a model. Like, it's like, yeah, it takes a long time because the body doesn't want extreme quick changes. And so, how did you kind of navigate that? Because I think that you talk about it so wonderfully. But did it ever feel kind of hard, or how did you kind of what self talk did you use in that? It didn't feel like it was just the weight was just falling off effortlessly.
Yeah. So, excuse me, two things. I actually think it did happen fast. Like, not even the weight, but like, because I remember someone saying this in the group, and I was like, I'm gonna challenge this because so much of it is a mindset, right? And so, as soon as you shift into all right, I'm going to not eat constantly. I'm not going to eat when I'm feeling like an emotion. That changed the bloatedness factor for me. So, like, that change did happen very fast. And, did it automatically result in a different number on the scale? No. But like, it felt like it was working very
Yeah.
fast for me because of the mindset shifts that happened very early on. But also, so I have a history of using bad coping skills, and like food was just like the most recent one. So I'm sober. I'm 5 years sober, and a lot of the work that I did when I stopped drinking alcohol is similar to the work that we do to like relearn about our emotions instead of eating. And so I learned during that first stage that like things do not happen overnight. Like, it is a slow burn. Like, these people who are like, on January 1, I'm going to go to the gym every day and I'm going to eat only like apples and meat. I don't know.
Very certain of you. Yes.
Yes. Um, but have these very, like, they want to change 6 things all at once. And I am just sort of like over here watching me and like, I just want to see how it works. I just want to
Yeah.
see.
So let me get my popcorn one sec.
Exactly. So I think I was, and I'm 36, like, I've lived some life, in a good way, and I didn't come in thinking that this was gonna be like a snap. In fact, I didn't want it to be.
Yeah.
I knew that, or had a sense that, like, things that were gonna be a quick fix just weren't going to be, the lasting change that I wanted, and I wanted something that I could do every day. I wanted something that was going to last me a lifetime. I I didn't wanna do a candida cleanse that I was gonna have to do every month or every, like, quarter or whatever, however often you're supposed to do a candida cleanse.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, it was perfect. It was exactly what I needed it to be.
And just to throw in sort of like a fun question, because I feel like this is something that everyone loves to like hear about, talk about. Was there a certain food that you never used to allow yourself pre 1010 and that now you either like don't even care for and you're like, oh, I don't even need to like resist that, or just a food that you're like, wow, I cannot believe I am that bitch who just like eats a XYZ?
I wish I had a more fun answer. No, because I
Give me
did
the
go through
boring
the
answer, you normal person.
Well, I had done, like, the food freedom thing, so I had gone through, like, the allowing myself to have food, and I was on the other end of the spectrum where I was like, I can eat, like, a package of sour gummy worms, and, like, that's okay, but, like, I'm gonna micromanage the fuck out of this other end so that
Yeah.
I could allow it. So, like, this I keep calling it a split energy. I don't know if that's accurate, but, like, I was going back and forth in between those 2 things. So, I remember other people in the group being like, "Oh, I'm gonna eat whatever it is," and I was like, "This." No, I wasn't there. I do think that I loved sour gummy worms a lot before, and I
You've
don't find
mentioned them
myself.
about 5 times, Katy.
Right? I don't find myself reaching for them anymore. Like, they're still fine, but, like, you know what I'd rather have? This is
Tell me.
zucchini bread, like a beautiful slice of zucchini bread with, like, a little bit of yogurt for breakfast.
Oh, that's nice.
Everything I want. It's just
Yes.
perfect.
Yes, I love that. And switching gears to relationships, because I
Yes.
hear wedding bells are in the air.
Oh, they are, yes.
And so how do you feel like this has possibly impacted your relationship or possibly also not at all? Because I think sometimes that's also a fear that women are like, oh my goodness, like I don't want to tell my husband or, my partner or whatever. And I don't want him to think that like I'm weird doing like a food program. So I'm curious, were you able to keep the whole thing secret? Did you need to? Or like, what was your honest experience?
I did tell him that I was like, I found this woman, Kiki, online, and I'm going to do her program. And he was like, all right. Um, and that was like the conversation we had.
Perfect.
But so the GLP-1, I can't remember the Ozempic. That had
I
been like
love
a
that you can't remember the name. Oh my God. You must
I
live a
know.
lovely sheltered life. How wonderful. Yeah.
I do. I
Totally
do.
beautiful.
I like that was being like tossed around. I mean, everyone's talking about it, right? So I remember having very strong opinions about this. So we would talk about that just by way of talking about hot topics in the news. And I was like, it's a shortcut. It's terrible. Like, again, because of my history with alcohol, and I had taken Adderall for a while too. And that has, I was taking it for reasons a doctor prescribes it to people, but it also had this like lovely effect of making me not hungry. So I was like, well, Ozempic's going to do the same ish thing where like people are going to take it. And then as soon as they stop taking it, they're just going to be in like this really weird place later. So anyway, we had talked about that and he knew my standing on that, but he also, I was so unhappy with the way my body was looking. I think I one time, because I was so careful to not talk to him about this,
Yeah.
because men are so simple. They're so simple and they're not thinking about it. He's just like, it's a naked lady and I love her and she's great. Like he's not thinking about anything else. So I didn't want to be like, I have thighs that I'm not happy with, because I don't want to
There's
put
excess here.
look, let me point it out to you, all the areas.
Orange. Yeah.
So I did. I told him that like I'm gonna do this program. And he was like, great. And I had to tell him, I'm like, I've lost 10 pounds. And he's like, that's great. I think I see him every day. It's not like I went away under a rock and he was under a rock for 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, he definitely could tell that I was crying more. And I had to explain that like I used to eat when I was feeling something and now I'm just feeling it. And he's like,
Yeah.
okay. Um, and so like bless this man because I think he didn't know what he was getting himself into.
Yeah.
But it is, but it's beautiful where we ended up and where I am now. And I think he's so supportive and I don't think it had like a huge negative impact on the relationship. If anything, I'm way more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing because when you remove the excess of food, you realize what's not working. And then sometimes you wake up to like, oh, wait, this is great. Right. And now I can actually absorb it and enjoy it. And so I think either relationships fall apart or they become stronger in a way because you're just more available to the relationship. And you're like, oh, wow, I can just like be here now in the relationship and actually kind of enjoy it more.
Absolutely. And I think I used my voice way more.
Yeah.
So like things that maybe I'd just be like, I'm not going to say anything about this. Because
Mm.
I had never lived with a man before, and I
Mhm.
don't know how other people do it, but it was real hard for me in the
Mhm.
beginning
Mhm.
because I'd never lived with anybody since like college. So
Yeah.
just the newness of that, I'd be like, well, that'll probably change. Like we're still figuring out how to live together. It's going to be fine. And once I stopped taking food out of it, I was like, we need to have a conversation about this
Mhm.
thing, and
Mhm.
it needs to happen now.
Not to like shift this podcast into like a feminine masculine thing, but I heard something the other day that I think is just super. I want to say it.
Yeah, tell me.
And it's women like fallen in love with a man that they like, and oftentimes they like want to change. And like women are like, oh wow, like let me like, build a bear, right? Like let me like, okay, like awesome. Like let me like let me take on this project. And
Yes,
whereas men, they fall in love with a woman hoping they will never change. And again,
change.
this is like the stereotype, right? But it's like, it makes sense. Like women fall in love with a man, like kind of deep down, they're like, yeah, and like, I hope he changes, right? And then, but men, it's like, and I hope she never changes. And that's the problem is that the men don't change, but then the women do, right? And whether it's aging or whatever, and they're kind of like, oh, I wish he just stayed the same. And we're like, I hope he changes. I'm not saying that you think that about your husband, but I just thought it was a fun little point.
That is a fun thing. And it reminds me of like, did you ever see Spice World?
Oh
The
my God,
Spice
that
World.
is my favorite movie of all time.
They have a whole bit about like ordering a man like a pizza. And I think
Um,
about that regularly. Not again, love my fiance. Don't want to order him like a pizza. You don't need to change. You're amazing. Thank you.
as long as you're only eating pizza when you are hungry for it, is all I'm saying.
That is true.
Um, well, it has been so fun to chat with you. As a closing little question,
Yes.
what does your inner skinny bitch persona feel like now? Because as I am grappling with whether or not to get rid of the skinny bitch verbiage in my marketing, I feel like you get the essence of what I'm trying to, provoke with this idea of a skinny bitch. Has nothing to do with being a size 0 or a size 12 or whatever. So if you were to kind of, talk about how your skinny bitch vibe feels like, how would you summarize it?
I hope you don't get rid of skinny bitch. I love it. I think it's so fun and like so like spicy and like flirty and sassy. I think I've used that word with you a couple times. Like you're so sassy. It's great. Cuz it's not like let's all only eat lettuce and, you know, get into deprivation. Like that's not it. It's I feel great. I mean, what popped into my head, I don't know if this answers your question, but like I go to bed a little hungry now. And it's the best. It's the best. And it feels like what an honest thing to do for myself, what a loving thing to do for myself. I don't spend my days meal prepping. I love going out to eat. I love eating just enough at dinner with the intention of being a little hungry when I go to sleep. Because you know what it does? It sets up my next day beautifully. I like waking up, having a coffee, having a breakfast. If I'm hungry, if I'm not hungry, no pressure. And it's just, I feel like I'm doing my body the best service that I can possibly do. And it has nothing to do with like being a like bitchy asshole, but it's like, look, what it is it's a little bit selfish. It's a little bit
Or
bitchy.
very. Let's be real.
Right.
It's very
Yeah.
selfish.
Okay, fine, let's be real. It's selfish. I'm being selfish because you know what? It's me. It's for me. If
Yeah.
I'm not selfish for me, who's gonna be like it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And me being selfish is not a negative impact on you. In fact, it's the best thing I can do for myself, for you, for our relationship, for the world, for my job. Because if I don't take care of this and if I'm not aligned, then like, what's the point?
Exactly. And I love that you also were so straight up with, you know what, for me in my chapter right now, going to bed a little bit hungry and tapping into the storage that I want to let go of is
Exactly.
the healthiest, happiest, like most loving thing I can do for myself. For someone
Mhm.
else, they might be, whether they're looking to lose excess or not, right? It might be,
Yeah.
you know what, I go to bed balanced now and I
Yeah.
don't feel hungry, right? And it's like, so I do just want to also clarify that to
Yeah.
someone who's listening, that it's like, oh, so you have to go to bed hungry. No, right? But as you've tapped into, it's like, you know what works for me is like going to bed so light, knowing that, hey, you know what, I'm going to tap into some reserves that I no longer want or need, and that I'm going to feel better when they're gone. And I get to wake up and start my day hungry and with food. And like that works for me. And I just feel like you've done clearly such a good job throughout the program, post program. You've made it your own. And it's really, I shouldn't say this, but it's really not about like the 10-10 method. It's about connecting to yourself and figuring out a connected eating style. And
Yes.
obviously, if you want to learn that, join my program because hello, I'm here to sell things. But Katy, it has been so fun chatting with you. I'm so appreciative of you and I love you so much. And I hope that I'm invited to the wedding. I'm just kidding. But, I hope that I can be zoomed in at least, maybe on the honeymoon.
Absolutely. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And like, I am so grateful for you for this conversation and for everything. Thank you.
Mwah. Bye, lovely.